Hey, Sam Smith, aka Sam's Myth, aka Noster Gamgee here, with my reaction to the Cannes official selection. It's one of my most favorite mornings of the year because I love Cannes. I love the whole world of the Cannes Film Festival. I don't know why. I think there's a little bit of a movement lately to say Cannes not as relevant anymore or whatever, and other festivals are also great, Venice, etc. Of course. But I mean, we had a really strong Cannes year last year with Zone and Anatomy and lots of others. And there's always interesting films that come out of Cannes from high profile, interesting directors, and kind of gives you something to look forward to for the rest of the year. Um, so yeah, I've been anticipating this announcement all day. This is not like a Poggers reaction video. I'm just going to talk about the official selection and my thoughts on some of them, and that's it. Another aspect of this is I like to, as a personal project, watch films by these filmmakers if I have time and if I can. Um, the ultimate realization of this idea was several years ago, before pre-pandemic, when Richard Vance and Allison Inman and I and some friends had a Cannes Apart, which was our official Cannes at Home festival, where we picked one film from each official selection filmmaker to watch at home together, and it was awesome. We did one for one every single filmmaker. I haven't been able to replicate that since because it involved a lot of coordination, but there's going to be some films I'm going to want to see from these filmmakers in the coming few weeks. Also, in the coming few weeks, we'll have the jury announcement, which for some reason this also just really gets me going. It gets me real jazzed. Thinking who from the world of film and history will be part of this jury. Greta Gerwig's the president. I think she's an awesome choice. Maybe a little quick as a to put a director as the jury president. A lot of directors who've worked for a lot longer have not had it. But Gerwig, I mean, geez, who can deny her streak so far as a filmmaker and her importance to world cinema right now, and after what she did with Barbie. Plus, she's got great taste. If you listen to any of her interviews or all the press tours she did for Barbie, all the films she's referencing, she's a classic old school cinephile with a great breadth of knowledge of film, and she's going to be great. It's always great to have female jury presidents. We only have 4 female filmmakers in competition. There are 19 films that were announced, and he said there will be a few more. There's always a few more that they add in the coming days. But I was reading from Ann Thompson, I think, that even if all the remaining announcements are female directors, it won't beat the 7 that were last year, 7 females last year. So it's still something Cannes got to work on, although I also don't want them to say necessarily strictly it has to be 50% female or has to be 50% anything. I want them to pick the films that resonated with them most. I'm sure there were a lot of submissions from female filmmakers, and the ones that are included are pretty significant. I'm really looking forward to all of them, actually. Not actually, but it just so happens that a couple of them are my most anticipated of the festival. So we'll go through them and I'll comment. Uh, Things that were left out, I should just say, as he was going alphabetically, Terry Fremeau and the official press conference, which you can watch. I watched this morning over my cup of coffee. He goes alphabetically, and you know pretty quickly that Diwan for Emmanuel was left off. Audrey Diwan, she did Happening. I loved Happening. It was my top 5 films of that year a few years ago. And Emmanuel is a new take on the old Emmanuel, I guess, film, or maybe they were books as well. But it's kind of an erotic film, and she's going to have her own spin on this, and it's going to be great. I know it's going to be great. I'm surprised it wasn't selected, especially because it's French and erotic. But I'm sure she'll be in Venice or something else, so I'm not worried about that at all. Not worried about any of the films that didn't get selected, including Guadagnino's Queer with Daniel Craig. It's definitely one of my most anticipated of the year. Luca's also got Challengers coming out, of course. Everything Luca does is interesting. Suspiria, I Am Love being a couple of my favorites. Of course, Call Me by Your Name. But he's got two films this year: Challengers, which got pushed from last year, and then also Queer with Daniel Craig. I think it's going to be a Best Actor contender moment for Daniel Craig. Anyway, we'll talk about that more later in the year. It did not get selected though. Also left out, I mean, Ozone, Leon Carax was put into the premiere section for his new film, which is kind of a meta autobiographical film. This is the director of Holy Motors. So yeah, interesting to see that not selected. And there's a few others that weren't selected. Of course, I'm always hoping for a surprise David Lynch return to film. And last year there were rumors of it, and he's also rumored to be working on another show, which may be a peripheral Twin Peaks spinoff. But anyway, I hope Lynch comes back to us one day. So, official competition starts off with, take a deep breath, The Apprentice. Yes, this is about Trump. It's like we already have Civil War and the discourse around that in an election year, and now we have The Apprentice, a film about Donald Trump, which Trump himself is going to go on and on about all fall, regardless of if it's great or bad. But it's probably going to be good because Ali Abbasi did Border and Holy Spider. I'm ashamed to say I have not seen either of these films. So my first order of business as a Cannes fan is to finally catch up with Border and then Holy Spider especially. This was in official competition in 2022. I think that was the year it was in. Great poster, by the way. I really cannot wait to see this. Border, I heard a little more mixed things, but I want to see it too. And I think the rest of these are shorts. Although, is Shelley a feature? Oh, yeah. So Shelley is a feature. Interesting. So I'll check out his other stuff. Definitely I'm going to be watching Holy Spider. But Sebastian Stan stars as Trump. Given that Holy Spider is supposed to be so savage, I mean, this is not like a tame filmmaker. This is a filmmaker who does interesting things and kind of ballsy things. I have a feeling this is going to be a pretty savage critique of Trump as a character study. So I think it's going to be good. What I mean, though, about giving fuel to Trump's ego is that I think this movie actually could go all the way into like a Best Picture nomination. Like when we're talking about Oscar predictions and the movies this year that are going to, come out of Cannes, get great reviews, be the films people talk about, the films people want to see. Apprentice is one of those that people are putting in the mix because it's actually not as strong of an Oscar year looking forward. I didn't do any year in advance Oscar predictions, at least in a video. I have been doing them on the Awards Expert app, which Brother Bro made. Shout out to you. But this really could go all the way into like a Best Picture lineup if it's good. It's one of the most acclaimed films of the year. So let's follow this story through the year, but it does debut in Cannes, and we'll know soon enough what type of film it is and how great it is. Next in line is from Karim Anous, Motel Destino. This filmmaker, I had not heard of or remembered when they announced it. But then when I clicked this letterbox, I was like, first of all, oh yeah, he did Firebrand, which was like one of the biggest disappointments of last year's Cannes. It was one of the most hyped because of Alicia Vikander and Jude Law and the subject matter, but it was one of the most disappointing according to all the reviews. In fact, it still hasn't been released. I'm trying to remember. I think someone finally picked it up for distribution, but it doesn't have. I don't know if it got released. It may have been dumped. I don't know. Only 4 have watched. Of my friends. Okay, so there's plenty of reviews, but yeah. So this kind of lowers your expectations a little bit. But Invisible Life was really good. I remember loving this. 2019. So he's done he's a Brazilian filmmaker. The new one is called Motel Destino. It says an intimate picture of a youth whose future has been stolen by a toxic and oppressive elite against which rebellion and violence are often the only possible way out. Sounds good. Especially if it's a Brazilian set film. I'm interested in him doing maybe less of the putting himself in a period position like Firebrand and more, making films about, I don't know, his own country, maybe. I don't No idea how this one's going to go, but it's one I'm not as familiar with. And I might watch one of his other films as we prep. Then we have a big one. It's Andrea Arnold's Bird. Now, contrary to this thumbnail, which the big headline about Bird is that Barry Keoghan is in it, Keegan, and Franz Rogowski. You guys know him from Passages last year, and plenty of other films. But it was interesting. We don't know much about this film. We love Andrea Arnold, so let me start there. She is amazing. I love Fish Tank and American Honey. These two films, if you haven't seen them, are great. Wuthering Heights adaptation was fine. Red Road, I still need to see. So Red Road is officially going to be my can apart selection of what I'm going to catch up with. It's 113 minutes, 3.6 on Letterboxd. It's one of her first films, if not her first feature. She actually did this film called Cow, which I'm dying to see too. It's a goddamn Sam movie, as my friends in college would say, where it is just a dialogue-free portrait of two cows. So this is completely up my alley. I want to see it, especially if she's like a vegan or something. That'd be really cool. But yeah, if you haven't seen Fish Tank or American Honey, please seek them out. I'm going to say right now, of the whole official competition, to me, Andrea Arnold seems the most on deck or overdue for more recognition on a broader level. American Honey is kind of slept on. Fish Tank is in Criterion, so it got a lot of attention. And this one's going to get a lot of attention because of Barry Keoghan. But from what Terry said when he announced this in the official selection this morning, was that it is a story, a coming-of-age story of a young girl in Britain, in England. So, okay, great. Barry Keoghan's a supporting role. Franz Rogowski's a supporting role. This is going to be a female coming-of-age story, just like Fish Tank, just like American Honey. This is her wheelhouse. This is what I want her to do. Of course, it'd be interesting if she switched it up and made a film about a male lead character like Barry Keoghan, but I don't think that's what this film is going to be. So temper your expectations for like Barry Keoghan leading this film. I think it's just going to be a coming of age film from Andrea Arnold, a female coming of age film. I can't wait. This is in my top 5 most anticipated of the year, along with Emmanuel by D1 I just mentioned. Also, The End by Joshua Oppenheimer did not make the selection. This is the director of some of the most acclaimed documentaries of the entire century, Act of Killing and Look of Silence. He's making his first narrative film. It's apparently a musical, and it did not get selected. So it could get selected somewhere else, but that was another snub, if you will. Shouldn't call it a snub, but one that some expected to see here. Okay, so I'm very hyped for Bird. Very, very hyped for Bird, one of my most anticipated of the year. This one from Jacques Audiard, director of A Prophet. It's called Emilia Perez. A Prophet, great. 2009, one of the best films of that year. Paris 13th District was the last film he did in competition. I didn't see this one. And it's like a kind of slice of life, modern Paris youth film. It looks really good, actually. It's just, it didn't get reviews that were like, this is one of the best films of Cannes or of the year, and it just slipped through my cracks. I never saw it. Whereas A Prophet was like, this is a masterpiece, if you'll allow the term. Rust and Bone was really good, too. Marion Cotillard. I loved this film. Great score from Desplat. But this one I want to see most, probably Deepan. I've heard good things about this. And then The Sisters Brothers, it's funny, this is the number 1 rated just because it's American cast. John C. Reilly and Joaquin Phoenix. I actually was really hyped for this at the time, but I heard it's not that great. So I don't know, maybe I'll catch up with this. But Jacques Audiard makes good and interesting films, and this one, I have to say, I'm getting vibes from this one. I'm getting like standouts, Anatomy of a Fall type vibes. It says, overqualified and overexploited, Rita employs her skills as a lawyer in the service of a large firm more prone to clear criminals than to serve justice. But an unexpected way out opens up to her, helping cartel leader Manitas retire from business and execute the plan he has secretly been fighting for years, finally becoming the woman he has always dreamed of being. So a trans thriller of some kind with Zoe Saldana and Selena Gomez. That is interesting. I don't know who plays who. I guess Rita is Zoe Saldana. I don't know who Selena Gomez plays. Edgar Ramirez is also in this. I don't know. This could go either way, but I'm just saying I'm getting feelings from this one that it could be good. Next we have Sean Baker, who is one of those. There are certain filmmakers that Terry Fremeau just puts in every single time. He says there were 2,000 films submitted, but he puts the same filmmakers in every time they put a film out, and Sean Baker is one of them now. Tangerine, of course, is great. It's his best. Florida Project was also great. Red Rocket was a little more disappointing to me, but still interesting and worth a look. I haven't seen Starlet or Takeout or Prince of Broadway. These are three I do want to see. These are his other features. Starlet looks a little less interesting. Takeout looks good. I think that's considered. I think Starlet's is. What's his debut? Well, anyway. Oh, Four Letter Words is his debut, technically. And then Takeout, and then it goes to Prince of Broadway, and then Starlet. And then Tangerine. So I had to catch up with some of his earlier work, for sure. But, Terry Fremeau just really respects this director as, one of the leading, he calls American New Wave filmmakers. That's how he sees him. And, the plot of this one, a comedy following sex workers. So you could say the same thing for Tangerine, so similar log line. And Neon is releasing it. Keep in mind, Neon is on a streak with the Palme d'Or. They've had the last, 4 Palme d'Or winners? Parasite, Anatomy of a Fall, etc. Maybe it's 3, maybe it's 4. Neon has already acquired a lot of films that were in the running. This year, The End was another one of them, but didn't make it. I think Neon has Bird, although I'm not positive on that. You do check on that again. Okay, after Anora from Sean Baker, you have a huge one, Megalopolis. This is already one of the biggest stories of the year. It's going to continue to be one of the biggest stories of the year, no matter what happens, because it is the long-awaited realization of Francis Ford Coppola's magnum opus that he's been trying to make for decades. So this leaked a couple days ago that it didn't leak. It was announced early that it was part of the official selection with a premiere date. This announcement happened just a week or two after Coppola screened the film in a private screening for top brass in the industry, buyers, producers, friends, actors, directors that he knew, kind of a friends and family screening. And there's a lot of mixed takes from this film, because the big question is this going to be some masterpiece from the director of The Godfather, The Conversation, and Apocalypse Now, or is it going to be a complete disaster, as the logline mentions? His last few films have not been great. In fact, I haven't even seen his last couple. I saw Youth Without Youth, but then like Twixt, and what was the other one? Anyway, it could go either way. But the fact that what makes this different from those other recent films is that this is his passion project, his labor of love. He's wanted to make and has been writing the script for decades. He had a script done 30, 40 years ago, from what I'm understanding. I'm not an expert on this topic, but I am very interested in it. And the interesting thing that's happened is that since that preview screening, where you had lots of mixed reviews, the general impression was, this is kind of a crazy balls to the wall movie that's hard to categorize. So you already know it's not going to be like a Oppenheimer, like a commercial success where the average person or your mom and dad are going to sit down and want to watch this, and it's going to be like a commercial mainstream epic on the level of The Godfather, but that it is going to be a more experimental film, in at least how the narrative is structured or how it's shot or made. And you can kind of hear people dancing around this in their reactions from that screening. Some people have said that that's a way to kind of cover up that it's not good, and they're trying to come up with something good to say about it. We will know more soon when we have a slew of reactions from Cannes and see if it actually gets awards at Cannes. But the most important thing here is the narrative that's developing around this movie, which is that a this idea that no one wants to buy this film and distribute it, and that Coppola would require such a marketing push behind him, and the film would require such a marketing budget. Coppola wants it on IMAX screens. That studios and distributors are afraid of this movie, that it's not commercial enough. And as soon as that narrative takes hold, this other narrative emerges, which you're already seeing, which is that, yeah, but why are we treating one of the great artists of cinema like the only thing that matters is the box office and making money? Do you realize what you're sounding like when you say that? You're getting this backlash to that backlash, which is typical, and it really is valid. And I think it is emblematic of the way a lot of people feel about films. I think it's important. It's going to be a narrative that I think continues. I think even if this is a mess of a film, you're going to have a lot of people supporting it, unless it's just god awful. And if it's god awful, then I don't really know how we kind of sweep it under the rug and just pretend like it didn't happen. Because you're going to have a lot of like high profile directors probably coming out in support of Coppola. You can already see like people like Paul Schrader, who's in the official selection, by the way, or Spielberg, and then Lucas, who's getting an honorary Palm this year at Cannes, kind of come out and support this film. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. It's an architect who wants to rebuild New York City as a utopia following a devastating disaster. Sounds good. Sounds interesting. Driver is the lead. Aubrey Plaza, Forrest Whitaker, Jason Schwartzman, Catherine Hunter, Giancarlo Esposito. It doesn't have like a dynamite who's who of a cast, although you look through and you do see Jon Voight, Dustin Hoffman. So I don't know. This is the biggest wild card, but I think Terry felt obligated to include it. I mean, how is Terry going to not include Megalopolis? So we still don't really know what it's going to do, but we'll see soon enough. I'm pretty excited, but I don't think it's going to be like an Oppenheimer this year. The Shrouds is the new Cronenberg. Cronenberg keeps getting in. He got in for, what's it called? Crimes of the Future, just recently. This is an innovative businessman and grieving widower building a device to connect with the dead inside a burial shroud. I'm hearing it's more of a personal film, less of a body horror film. But you can tell it's got a weird premise. So there is like a fantastical kind of macabre premise to this. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's Vincent Cassel though. Vincent Cassel leading the film is great. We haven't seen him in a bit. I mean, I'm sure he's been doing other French films that I am not aware of, but that's great that he's leading a Cronenberg film. Diane Kruger is also great. Guy Pearce, that's interesting. I haven't heard from him in a minute. So yeah, we'll see how this is. I didn't love Crimes of the Future. I really wanted to, so I'm hoping Shrouds is like a return for me to Cronenberg. Here's one of the female filmmakers. It's described as an explosive feminist take on body horror. Terry Fremo described it in his cheesy way as, bring your umbrella. There will be blood pouring from the screen. So, I don't like gore, and I don't like body horror either, really. As much as I respect Cronenberg and these filmmakers. So I don't know if this is really going to be my thing. But hey, I'm for any, subversive feminist horror film, I guess. It stars Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, so that's a huge selling point. Both of them in different ways. You have Dennis Quaid in a supporting role. That's crazy. The director is Coralie Fargo. Sorry, I'm horrible with French. Her last film, Revenge, got a lot of hype. So this is the one you're already seeing people on Twitter talking about today that you have to see. Ehrlich's got a 3.5-star review here. Matt Neglia says, storyline can be a bit basic, but who cares when you have this much style? So we're looking at a very violent, stylish director here, exploring female revenge plots. And, everyone's going to be here for it. And I hope it's great. The Substance is the name of it. Then we have Grand Tour from Miguel Gomez. This is another one I'm putting a little Sam asterisk by because this sounds good to me. Let's go to the director, Miguel Gomez. I reminded myself of his filmography this morning. Taboo was in my top 5 of 2012. This film was amazing. I've only seen it once in theaters. It was one of those experiences that was so profound that I almost don't want to see it again because I don't want to have a lesser experience. But I do need to check back in with it. And then I really need to see the Arabian Nights trilogy. This is like, I guess, loosely inspired by the actual Arabian Nights books, which I'm pretty into, like the mythology of that in terms of like folklore, but a modern interpretation. This is some of my favorite poster art of the century, by the way, as well. But I really want to see Arabian Nights. It's just a 3-part film, and each film is long. So each film is over 2 hours. Let's see if I can commit to it in time for Cannes. Then you also have the Sugua Diaries 2021. I didn't even hear about this one, although some people have reviewed it on my timeline. So yeah, that'll be interesting to check in with. But the plot of this one it sounds interesting, so check it out. Grand Tour kicks off in Rangoon, Burma, 1917. Edward, a civil servant for the British Empire, runs away from his fiancée Molly the day she arrives to get married. During his travels, however, panic gives way to melancholy. Contemplating the emptiness of his existence, the cowardly Edward wonders what has become of Molly. Yet Molly, determined to get married and amused by his move, follows his trail on this Asian Grand Tour. So, I don't know. It sounds like it's going to be interesting, and it might be black and white, just like Taboo. This is the only picture we have, so pretty interested in this one. Put an asterisk by it. Then we have Christophe Honoré. Now, this is interesting. A little shout out, I got to do one of his posters for a film called Metamorphoses. If we click Christophe Honoré, you will see it right here. There's my poster. And that was also another kind of modern mythological take, kind of similar to Arabian Nights. 2014, 10 years ago. And then he's got some other films. I haven't seen any of his other recent films, actually. I might watch one of his old films or two as for Cannes Apart on my own or with Vance. So this plot, though, this concept is very interesting, and it's kind of cinephile catnip. Catnip. It's very catnipy. The title that Terry announced on the press conference is different from this title. He said Marcello Mio, like my Marcello. But this says Près de you, Près de quoi. I don't know, something of heart. I don't know what that means. But anyways, from what I understand, this is a fiction, non-fiction hybrid of Marcello Mastroianni's daughter going around, and this says she's going by Marcello's name, dressing like him, asking to be considered an actor. The people around her believe this to be a joke, but Chiara is determined not to give up her new identity. I don't know if it's like a document. It sounds very like Agnes Varda Godard-esque or something. Catherine Deneuve is in it. So this is going to be kind of a meta cinephile type of movie, a tribute to Marcello Mastroianni. It might be all fiction and narrative, but it also sounds like it's blurring the lines, which I love those films that blur the lines between fiction and nonfiction. That'll be interesting. Blown by the Winds is a big one. This is Jia Zhangke. Now, confession time, and exciting confession, because I wait for these moments. I've only seen a couple Jia Zhangke films. I've seen Ashes, The Purest White, and A Touch of Sin, which are kind of his more like thriller crowd pleasers. I haven't seen any of his like slower pieces that are even more critically acclaimed, such as Still Life, or Unknown Pleasures, or Mountains May Depart, or the big one is The World. I've always wanted to see this. It's long, it's 143 minutes, but hey, after the last few years of auteur films, we can handle anything. I'm excited to see this. This is definitely one I'm going to be watching ahead of Cannes. And maybe I can get to Still Life too, because this also looks amazing. And in a great podcast called Can I Kick It?, you guys should check out if you're as into Cannes as I am. These guys on this podcast know their stuff. They did a fun Cannes draft episode where they were basically like trying to predict of all the films that could come to Cannes, which are the ones most likely that could win the Palme d'Or. And they did a whole bracket. It was less a draft and more a tournament bracket. And the film potentially coming to Cannes that they thought was most likely, knowing nothing about the films, to win the Palme d'Or was the new Gia Janka film. It's because he is so respected, so revered by critics, that it's just one of those where any time now he could release a film that comes along and breaks through and is one of the more acclaimed films of the year. This has got no imagery yet. I need to design a poster for this today. The film is set across the first 2 decades of the 21st century and tells the story of how a Chinese woman lives to herself in silence, celebrating the prosperous Belle Epoque with song and dance. Interesting. Yeah, don't know how this one could go. The English title is Blown by the Winds. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This one is very hyped for me. All We Imagine as Light. The director is Payal Kapadia. The premise is a nurse receives an unexpected gift from her long-estranged husband that throws her life into disarray. Her younger roommate tries in vain to find a private spot in the big city to be alone with her boyfriend. One day, the two nurses go on a road trip to a beach town where the mystical forest becomes a space for their dreams to manifest. I'm getting Apichatpong vibes, and just from the posters of her other films, I'm also getting Apichatpong vibes. And when I click on her films, look, If Joe and Tsai had already Apichatpong references by Flynn right there, who's watched one of her shorts. So this is the director. She's Indian from Mumbai. What can I say except I am so psyched to discover this filmmaker. This looks totally up my alley. Her only other feature, I think, is called The Night of Knowing Nothing. Merging fantasy with dreams, memories, anxieties, fiction, and amorphous narrative unfolds. I mean, this sounds up my alley. I hope I can find a way to watch this. I want to, introduce myself to her work before her new film comes out. So cool to see this being selected. We have Yorgos Kinds of Kindness. This was like a no-brainer. This is one of the most high-profile ones just because, Yorgos had Poor Things, and this is his back-to-back Emma Stone movie again. But it's a triptych with 3 stories. The poster dropped today. It's great, of course. I mean, everyone is very hyped for this. I'm keeping my expectations low. A, because it's a triptych anthology film, although I think that all 3 of these are going to be connected, especially if you look at the poster here. If you look at the poster that just dropped, which all of his posters are great, this shows 3 triangle images that link up into a central 3 hands being held together. I don't think it's going to be an anthology film like Buster Scruggs as much as 3 stories that come together. And I also think this is going to be kind of a return to form for Yorgos, where it's going to be more fucked up, even than Poor Things. Poor Things was, I don't know, his earlier films, if like Dogtooth and Sacred Deer and stuff like this, were much more messed up. Margaret Qualley is in this too, Qualley. So that's funny. Joe Alwyn's in it. Jesse Plemons, I hope he's got a great role because we all want to see more from him. Anyway, this is the one we're going to see soonest after Cannes because it comes out in like June, and we're going to be seeing it pretty soon. I'm sure people will like it. It's going to be hard to top Poor Things, though. This is Gilles Lelouch, Beating Hearts. L'Amour Ouf. I love this poster already that they've got out. Brilliantly done, whoever's dropped that. I don't know what to say about this one. I got really nothing to say. French actor, started career as a director. Okay. Actually, I haven't heard of any of these films. Maybe I've heard of Narco. I don't know. There's often just like a French film that they throw in that doesn't look that great. But then again, I've said that before about Justine Triet. No offense to her, but she's been included before where the film just did nothing, and then all of a sudden she does Anatomy of a Fall, and it just hits. So you never know what's going to hit. You really don't. Oh, Adela Sarkopoulos is in this. Okay, color me intrigued. She's great. Diamond Brute is Agatha uh, Redinier, maybe. Now, she's got no information about her on Letterboxd, so this is like pretty much a debut feature film from her. It says Leon, 19, reckless and incandescent, lives with her mother and little sister and the dusty son of Freyu, obsessed by beauty and the need to be somebody. She sees in reality TV the possibility of being loved. She goes on a reality show, Miracle Island. Not getting me super psyched, but who knows? The funny thing though is you click her other film, this short, 23 minutes. Read the logline. 21-year-old Leanne has learned she's been accepted to participate in a reality TV show. So I think she's remaking her short, essentially. This reminds me of like when Maddie Diop, my favorite, why isn't her film not in Cannes? I guess because it already premiered. Dahomey is one of my most anticipated of the year. She's got a new film. But Maddie Diop remade Atlantics as a feature. So this seems kind of like that. So if you want to watch the film and figure out, what led to what she's doing with this feature, it's maybe out there somehow. Oh, Canada is from Paul Schrader. I was a little surprised to see this one make the official selection. Hopefully it's great because it stars Richard Gere. It also stars Jacob Elordi as a young Richard Gere. It's about a documentary filmmaker looking back on his life on his deathbed. So you have the old man, Paul Schrader, looking back on life and making a film about an old man looking back on life. He's agreeing to a final interview where he's bearing all his secrets at last to demythologize his life. Uma Thurman's in it. Sounds good. I mean, I didn't love... I liked First Reformed a lot. I didn't see the other two in the new trilogy, Card Counter and Gardner, whatever the Gardner one was. But because I heard mixed things about him. But, Paul Schrader, terrible Facebook, Twitter takes. But anyway, you got to love him. He's contributed a lot to cinema history, and we'll see what that one's like. It could be interesting with Gere, Maybe, who knows? Maybe it goes all the way to like a Best Actor nomination for Richard Gere. This is Kirill Serebrennikov. He's in almost every time, like I said before. Leto, Petrov's Flute, and Tchaikovsky's Wife were all selected. And they're all... This is interesting because he's such an important figure because he's a Russian filmmaker who's been basically charged with all kinds of political... charges, basically been exiled and sentenced. He is on supposed house arrest, but moved to Hamburg in Germany, according to the most recent update, 2022. I don't know where he is right now, but anyone making subversive films in Russia, obviously this is an important, interesting filmmaker. It's just that none of his films have really broken out as like these are masterpieces or anything like that. The Student is the one I'm most wanting to see. I'll have to mark that down. I marked this down as one I should have seen when his last film was in. But I mean, last year he had Tchaikovsky's Wife, or maybe it was the year before, and no one said anything of it. They're like, it's disappointing. This is a super disappointing film. So I wouldn't get too hyped about it. But again, you never know when he's going to make a great film. It's called Limonov, The Ballad of Eddie, the outrageous story of Edward Limonov, the radical Soviet poet who became a bum in New York, a sensation in France, and a political anti-hero in Russia. I know nothing about this. I'm an idiot when it comes to historical events and people, but who knows? This could be great. At least it's about a Russian history topic, and that could lead to something great. Parthenope, I think is how you say the new film from Paolo Sorrentino. This is the director of The Great Beauty. I loved The Great Beauty. He did The Hand of God, which I was a little let down by. He did Youth, which, if you want to understand the vibe of Paolo Sorrentino, just look at the poster for Youth, which is kind of cringy. But no, I'm being too hard on him. This is like a old Italian guy romantically looking at life and youth in all his films and romance. The Young Pope he did as well. I don't know. He's not I don't know. This could be interesting because Gary Oldman's in it. Now I don't know. I've heard that he's not the lead because it's about a female character, the life of Parthenope, neither siren nor myth, from her birth in 1950 to the present day. It looks romantic and passionate, and I'm sure it'll be interesting. I like the idea of him putting Gary Oldman in a leading role, but we had Michael Caine, and you just saw Keitel in Youth, and no one really loved that film either. It got fine reviews, but I'm not expecting too much from this. This is kind of a classic Cannes pick. Terry's got his certain picks he makes. I'm disappointed to not see not see more Asian cinema in here. You have, All We Imagine Is Light, but in terms of like Japanese, you have Blown by the Winds, so we have Janka, but I always want to see Japanese films make it. And the director of Cure has a new film coming out, Kurosawa, Kiyoshi Kurosawa. He has a new film coming out, and people were hoping to see it in the new Cannes selection, but it's not there. But I'll look forward to that whenever it comes out. Last is The Girl with the Needle. I don't got anything to say about this one. It's Magnus von Horn, a Swedish director. His film The Hereafter premiered at Karlovy Vary and won Best Film and Director at another award. His film Sweat was selected at Cannes 2020. Sweat is like a social media workout motivator. It doesn't looking for true intimacy. The reviews are like, yeah, that's exactly what you'd expect. It's not that amazing. Hereafter, I guess, looks somewhat interesting. I don't know. I got no read on this whatsoever. To me, this seems like just I reserve judgment. I'm not trying to be down on anything, but I'll reserve judgment. Overall, the selection is kind of what we expected. Like I said, a couple things we thought would be in there that aren't, but they'll premiere later this year. It doesn't encompass all of the most anticipated, art house or international films that we have in mind. Again, Emmanuel not here, The End not here, Queer from Guadagnino not here. But it's going to be great. I can't wait for Cannes to see how all these films turn out, see what Greta Gerwig and the jury select for the Palm and for other awards. Last year was a big one. Don't know if we have another Zone of Interest or Anatomy of a Fall that's going to go all the way to an Oscars. People are really, really, really going to be scouring and looking for those Oscar picks from this lineup, and it's not always going to happen every year. So if it doesn't happen, don't stress it. Don't put too much stock on these films as Oscar contenders. But let me know in the comments if you've watched this far, what you're most interested in seeing, and I will sign off from here and say thanks for watching.